All right, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are here now going over the fantasy football rankings for wide receivers 11 through 20. This is going to be a great episode just for the mere fact that we're going to be able to give you all the information that you need once we get past the top guys. I think that this year a lot of people are strategizing at going running back heavy early, which just makes these wide receivers as we get into rounds 3, 4, and so on even more valuable. I'm really excited about this episode. Hammer, anything you got to like touch on to as we start off here? Anything that you're looking forward to or have on the top of your mind?
Let's get it.
All right. So at number 11 for me, and I think that a good recap for us also maybe just going over some of the last wide receivers that we had drafted, just so that you guys kind of get a feel of who's off the board, who we already picked, and just see who's available right now. So I'll bring this up real quick before we go. But first off, or first up, I had who was it? Michael Thomas. We both had Michael Thomas actually as our number one wide receiver. Number 2, we both had Adams. 3, I had Hill. He had Jones. 4, I had Hopkins. He had Hopkins. 5, I had Jones. He had Evans. 6, I had OBJ. 7, he had Tyreek Hill. Or 6, I had OBJ. He had Hill. 7, we both had Godwin. 8, we both had Galladay. 9, I had Evans. He had Thielen. 10, I had JuJu. He had Allen Robinson. And now as we get into to number 11, for me, I have Adam Thielen. He's the number 1 option over in Minnesota. We know that it's been a pretty good offense under Kirk Cousins. We know that Thielen has been pretty consistent. Last year, he had a little bit of an injury. And with Stephon Diggs being traded away to Buffalo, I just like his target share of available over there in Minnesota. And that's why I have him as my number 11 guy. Who do you have at 11, Hammer?
Number 11, I got a wide receiver from the Los Angeles Rams, Cooper Kupp. It's kind of a no-brainer right now with the subtraction of Brandon Cooks and some other key weapons that, that the Rams had a couple of years back. And we had this conversation over and over again throughout these podcasts in regards to the Rams and how overrated they've been. And funny enough, I actually saw a video with this guy. He does his spoofs on the NFL on TikTok. Shout out to Wyatt. Cooper Kupp last year had 94 receptions out of 134 targets for 1,161 yards, 10 touchdowns. Rushing, not so much, obviously. He averaged close to 17 points, fantasy points a game, and 270.5 for the season. He's rebounded from the torn ACL he suffered midway through 2018 to posting the best numbers of his career. And he became an excellent weekly wide receiver too. He finished 4th with 91.3 true catch rating, and also ranked 4th with a healthy 20 red zone targets. He developed into one of the best slot receivers in the league, but he also has the wheels to make a downfield impact as well. And we saw that with his longest reception being 66 yards. The number 1 concern for him going into the season, we know that he's probably going to be the number 1 weapon in Los Angeles, but he has to stay healthy. You said he missed several games last season, and midway through 2018, he missed games due to the torn ACL as well. So we just have to see what he can do this coming season.
Absolutely. And Cooper Kupp, like you said, through I think like week 9 was one of the top wide receivers scoring last year. He's a really dynamic playmaker. But one thing that we did notice is that they started going to more 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end sets over in the Rams. And that's what led to Tyler Higbee's rise through the ranks. And last year, we did see that Kupp had a huge drop off in that second half when they made that switch. So that does leave him a little bit I don't know, a bit of a risk factor for me. So I actually don't have Cooper Kupp in my top 20 right now, just because of that, and I'm a little bit worried about that. But I'm going to touch a little bit more about that later on when I get to one of my other players. But at number 12 for me, I have AJ Brown. Now I have the wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans, who we all know there's a little bit of volume concern. And last year he did come on only as the second half as a rookie, but he made some huge plays. And he was a big part of Tennessee's run to the championship last year. He's a dynamic playmaker. And I don't think, especially with Corey Davis, showing up, I believe he was sick or COVID list, I forget, but I know he hasn't shown up to camp yet. And if Corey Davis doesn't show up, that's going to leave a lot more opportunities for A.J. Brown to really take over the target share over there in the Titans. But who do you have at 12?
Number 12, I have another Los Angeles Ram and Robert Woods. Mm-hmm. And looking at the numbers in regards to target distribution last year, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods actually split majority of the offense. They made up a total for about 43% of the offense in regards to targets. So it's not bad at all. He had a positive touchdown regression. I'm sorry. He was the only receiver to have more than 1,100 yards and have less than 4 receiving touchdowns last season, despite virtually no scoring. He still finishes a high-end receiver too, just like Kupp. Those are going to be options you guys want to draft as your number 2 receiver as fantasy owners this year. Factor in that Brandon Cooks is now completely gone from the offense and from the Rams. Mm-hmm. He could serve as a great value and production for the Rams this coming season.
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. One thing I'd like to point to is when you look at top receivers, in the years past, we've seen JuJu and Antonio Brown both be in the top on the same team at the same time. Last year, we saw Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both be at the top last year. So just because these two wide receivers are on the same team doesn't mean that both of them can't finish within, this top 15 threshold. So sometimes when you look at it, you're like, well, it's not just the number one guy. Well, they get enough targets. Like he was saying, Woods and Kupp had virtually almost the same targets. So that's another, I feel like, dynamic player. But for me at 13, I have Allen Robinson. He's a guy that you had ranked up a little bit higher at 10. The reason why I took Allen Robinson here and not that high is because, like we had said before, the quarterback. I don't know when Mitch Trubisky is going to lose it, if he's going to lose it, how Mitch is going to come out. When Foles comes in with Foles and Allen Robinson, yeah, I like that combination. I think that could possibly be something really special. Definitely a wide receiver one, definitely capable quarterback. But right now, knowing that he's going to start with Mitch, I'm just worried and hesitant, and that's the only reason why he is this low. Maybe he could end up going higher because, like you said, he's a dynamic talent. He's one of the best, contested ball catchers. So he has a lot of upside there. But Allen Robinson is who I have at 13. Who are you running at 13?
13, I'm running with former Las Vegas Raider, now Dallas Cowboy, going into his second season, Amari Cooper. Dude finished last year as his best year to date. He had career high in receiving yards, 1,189, and 8 receiving touchdowns. The Cowboys were pleased with how he played last year, so they rewarded him with a 5-year, $100 million deal. He projects to be the number 1 receiver for Dallas, which is kind of a given already. He was slightly smaller target share in 2019 with Michael Gallup, so it's hard to project him seeing a larger target share, especially now with the addition of CeeDee Lamb. But it's more likely that he's still going to continue to perform, and as long as he stays consistent and actually continues to better those hands, because that was his main issue when he was in Vegas. Dude had hands for feet half of the time, or feet for hands rather. So he'll probably I feel like he'll turn back up this year, and especially Dak is going to need him if Dak wants to see his money come the end of this coming season as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. There's a lot of upside with Cooper, and Dak and Cooper seem to have a nice little connection. If you look at last year, they started off really hot. They had, 4 touchdowns in the first 3 games, and, it just continued to go through that way. And he had some big games, throughout the season. In his final 5 games, he had 3 games with over 80 yards. So he definitely has that big play explosion capability and is going to be a big factor in that offense. But my number 14 receiver that I have was actually the guy that you had just ranked ahead or just had spoken about in Woods. I think, like you said, Woods has a lot of potential in that offense. He has a great target share. I like him to see an increase in his touchdowns. Last year, like you said, he only had, I believe, 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. So he didn't have that many touchdowns. And in comparison to what he normally does in his career, that was a huge downtick. So I think that Woods is due for a nice comeback season. And in that offense, without having Cooks there, it kind of just gives a more options for him to get that high target ceiling that we were talking about. And I think he does end up as the number 1 wide receiver on the Los Angeles Rams. Okay, and that would be my number 14 pick at wide receiver. Who's your number 14, Hammer?
Number 14 of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going with Tyler Lockett right now. Lockett finished in fantasy points as a receiver at number 13 last year, ranked 7th with 8 touchdown receptions, 20th in receiving yards, 1,057. Contested catches, 33.3, which was ranked 56. Drops, he ranked 5th with only 2. So that's definitely a major positive. After the departure of Doug Baldwin, Lockett was able to grab the number 1 receiver role for the Seahawks offense last year. Saw over 100 targets for the first time in his career and surpassed 1,000 yards. He ranked top 12 in air yards and was second in the NFL in red zone targets with 23. He also ranked 5th in separation. Lockett's entering his 6th consecutive season with Russell Wilson as his quarterback, so expect Lockett to benefit from Wilson's passing efficiency once again this coming season.
And I'll say this, 2 years ago, I had Tyler Lockett when I was at the end of Doug Baldwin's career, and Doug Baldwin was starting to fade out, and that was the first time that Tyler Lockett really started to come on the scene. Won a championship with him. This guy's always had tremendous upside, tremendous speed. It always seems like Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have had big plans for him and really like him. So, you definitely can't go wrong with a guy like Lockett. For me, at number 15, I have the guy that Cameron was just talking about as well, and that was Amari Cooper. You heard all the stats and the superlatives. The guy puts up numbers. Him and Dak Prescott seem to have a good rapport. The knock on him, he does kind of drop passes. He has a little bit of bad hands. But, with the opportunity that he has of just sheer target share, just because we know he signed a big contract, he's the alpha wide receiver in the room. They're going to get him the ball. And I think that, once you're talking here in the 14th, 15th pick, he's a pretty safe player that we should project out to being the number 1 wide receiver on a high-powered Cowboys offense, who we don't think really has a great defense this year, which should lend them to being into more shootouts and having to use these weapons on the outside. So I definitely like Cooper there at my 15. And for you at 15, Hammer, who do you got? Can't hear you, Hammer?
My bad. I have wide receiver DJ Moore, the Carolina Panthers, at number 15. After the decision to move on from Cam Newton, it's going to be tough to see what this dude does this coming season. We know that offense in Carolina is mostly made up of Christian McCaffrey, running back, receiver. Kid can do it all. I don't think we've seen him throw a football yet, but he's definitely something special. But Moore has a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater right now. This is an ongoing conversation, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse as many times as I said it. It's another guy with a new weapon, a new quarterback. We know they're in training camp now, so they're finally being able to work out together. So it's just a matter of getting everything together throughout, through reps, through training camp, and going into the season, which starts in a month now. Yeah.
It's getting close. And the crazy thing is that this year we don't have a lot of preseason or training camp. Well, we have training camp information, but it's not the same as what it normally is. We're not getting full training camps. We're not getting players out there working it. I believe quarterbacks are the first ones that really got to work with coaches. Lately, everyone's been doing a lot of virtual. We're going to start seeing more interactions with the coaches and the players on the actual field, and maybe we'll be able to get some more definitive answers on some of these players and these toss-ups. But, one thing with DJ Moore, like you said, it's a new system, but he's a great player. So sometimes that just doesn't even matter when you're that good. And we know he got a big target share over there in Carolina last year. But for me, at number 16, I have a player that plays in the same division, and that's Calvin Ridley. I think that Calvin Ridley in his third year is primed for a breakout. Everything about him to me screams upside. This kid was a talent since he was in college. I believe. Where did he go to college, Amber? Did he go to Alabama?
I want to say Alabama. I could be wrong though. I can't remember.
I believe that he was one of those. I know he was a top wide receiver draft pick when he came out. The Falcons traded up for him, and the Falcons have had a history of, even back when they had Roddy White, they went and took Julio Jones. They groomed Julio Jones to basically replace Roddy White, and then now they're doing it again with Calvin Ridley. I think that this is the year 3, that Calvin Ridley finally blows up and takes it to the next level. And with Austin Hooper out of there, cutting down on some of the target share, and there's no Mohamed Sanu, I think that it does settle for Calvin Ridley to get a decent amount of targets and be able to be, one of these top guys. We know he's a big guy in the red zone, and I'm really high. I had to do everything I could to lower Calvin Ridley this high, this low, I should say, because something about him just screams like breakout. I'm just being real. And that's just my personal opinion there. That's why he is kind of ranked a little bit lower, just because I want to suppress some of that fanboy that I'm having for Ridley. But what do you got at 16?
Before I touch my 16, you're absolutely right. Calvin Ridley is a product of Nick Saban and that Alabama offense. So there you go.
Yep.
At number 16, I have a receiver from the Los Angeles Chargers, Keenan Allen. Mm-hmm. Finished 6th in fantasy points among receivers last year. Finished 20 with 6 touchdown receptions, 5th with 1,199 yards. Mm-hmm. Drops 4, which ranks 32nd. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. He played all 16 games for the 3rd consecutive year and reeled in a career best with 104 catches last year. Mm-hmm. With an average of 148 targets and 101 receptions since 2017, he's been one of the most consistent wide receiver ones in fantasy football. He enters with some obstacles this year that could derail his finish as a receiver one, now that Phillip Rivers is now an Indianapolis Colt. Right now, they're not sure exactly who the starter is going to be at this time. They're going back and forth between Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert. I think Tyrod Taylor is probably going to gain the reins a little bit earlier in the season. And if they start going down south, then Justin Herbert's going to get his shot.
Well, I'll say this, that what you speak of with the fact that there is uncertainty at the quarterback. One is a rookie. One is a guy that's never really been able to spearhead a high
starting role
offense.
Yeah.
When he was with the Bills, it was more of a run, run action. And that to me scares me about, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a great receiver. Talent-wise, he's up there. That's why, when you take a guy here, his talent can just supersede everything and just make it so that he lives up to the numbers. But when I look at the situation scares me. And that's the only reason why I don't have, if you see there, Keenan Allen in my top 20. I do tend to favor some of these younger guys who I think might be able to explode, which can hurt sometimes because, they're not as established. And in a short season, or not a short season, but a shortened off season like we have, learning the playbook for some of these guys or being able to expand in their roles becomes a little bit harder. And the veterans are going to be leaned on because they have the experience with the playbook or with the coaching staff or knowing the situations. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens. But that's why I do have DJ Moore at 17 because of everything that we were talking about. If I had more knowledge of how these guys are meshing, what they're planning on doing on offense in Carolina, how Teddy's really playing, I may be more inclined to move Moore up because Moore is a target beast. This guy is insane with his numbers. Just to clarify here, DJ Moore last year was one of the best wide receivers in the game, and he had put up ridiculous stats, especially with no quarterback. I think that was one of the main things that I really liked about DJ Moore is that he did everything with no quarterback last year. He had Kellen Moore throwing to him, or I forgot his name, but I just wanted to pull this up. DJ Moore last year had 187 points. He had 135 targets. Or where am I at? I'm sorry, my screen had gone away. But it's just insane the number of targets he had. He had 135. So when you're looking at a guy with that many target upside, now you're not sure about how the coaching staff plans on using him. So he could get a target regression when you're looking at getting it, or he could get an expansion. But that's why I have at 17. Let me just stop my rambling. But it's a little bit weird for me there. No training camp. What are your thoughts on that and some of these positions? The fact that we don't have the preseason and training camps aren't traditionally what we're used to seeing. Does that affect your rankings at all? Does that make you worry about some of these younger players? What are your thoughts there?
It's not necessarily affecting my rankings. I'm still looking at it. I'm kind of going into this season not thinking too much of the pandemic that much, because we already know the deadline is passed for players that can opt out for the season anyways. And pretty much every player that we've put in our top right now, none of them have opted out. Not that I recall anyways. The only one that it was funny we were talking about him was when we were talking about our rankings with running backs and talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the draft from the Chiefs. Less than 24 hours after we did our podcast, Damian Williams opted out. So now Clyde Edwards-Helaire is hands down the number one. He is going to ball out this year. So if we ever, I know we're talking about down the road about maybe we have some tweaks to do in regards to 2 weeks before the season starts. I'm telling you now, Edwards, his stock just went up ridiculously because that kid is going to carry the load. And as long as he stays healthy and produces, he's going to put up some ridiculous numbers for KC this year.
But then here's my one question with that. Does it worry you a little bit that he doesn't know the playbook? Or that he won't be as experienced in the playbook? That's my only concern with some of these guys. Like,
you know what? No rookie is ever experienced with the playbook when they're drafted and coming into the league, regardless of how shortened everything is during this offseason. These guys got the stuff that they needed. They got the tools. They got their playbooks. They were doing the Zoom sessions amongst their teammates and amongst the coaches as well. So they're still being prepared. It's just a different way of how they're being prepared right now. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for any of these guys, especially these rookies. I think for them, it's a new, and I hope it's not a norm, but right now it's a new norm for them for the time being. But I think they should all be okay right now going into the season.
Awesome. And back to where we were. So now you're at 17 with your wide receiver 17.
Yeah, one of your favorite players.
Yeah,
one of your former Giants, one of the guys that you drool all for.
Oh my God, just amazing.
Oh my God, here we go. Don't you dare bust that nut. No, I'm joking.
Where's the net when you need it?
I'm going with Cleveland Browns receiver Odell Beckham Jr. We talked about him when we did our top 10. You had him in there. The dude's numbers last year were just atrocious for somebody of his caliber. He ranked fantasy points last year. He finished as ranked 25th, 43rd in touchdown receptions with 4, 23rd in receiving yards with 1,035. Contested catches 40, which was ranked 43rd. Drops 11, which was ranked 78th. Yes. This is why I didn't have him in my top 10. I understand he played under a new head coach in Freddie Kitchens, but he played with Baker Mayfield for 2 years, and Baker Mayfield was on a slide as well last season. It's really hard to tell what he's going to be able to do this coming season. I know they have the addition with Austin Hooper as a tight end, so they have a new weapon to use on the offense as well. I know you had talked about Landry a little bit earlier in regards to an injury. Is that going to hinder Landry for long? Are we going to see Beckham be a legit target and go back to putting up the numbers he did when he played with the Giants? It's hard to tell right now. We just have to wait and see how this season turns out for him.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I can point to here with Jarvis Landry, last year he finished as the wide receiver 13 in PPR scoring. So he's definitely our target beast. He has great rapport with Baker. And when you look at the new offensive coach. He was or new coach of Cleveland. He was the old offensive coach over there in Minnesota. So with Minnesota, they've always been a 2 wide receiver and heavy running back team, which just gives me a little bit more hope that over there in Cleveland this year, we're going to see, Chubb or Hunt, whoever they have running at the running back, and both Odell and Landry, feasting. And I'm hoping that with the injury to Landry, this is going to open up Odell for more targets. And Odell last year was playing with the injury, which I think hindered him. So, getting a guy like Odell to me, even at this late pick at 17, is a steal. His upside screams someone that could finish in the top 5. We've seen it. Like Cameron said, last year his numbers were piss poor compared to his actual, talent. This guy is looked at as being a top 5 talent in the NFL. Now, will that translate to fantasy points? We have to see. Now, for me, at 18, I have a guy who last year he put up some really big numbers. He's on a team which with a bad defense, which I'm expecting is going to lead to them having to throw a lot, them being down a lot. So they're going to have to always be playing comeback, which lends itself to volume. And that's Chark, DJ Chark over there in Jacksonville. Gardner Minshew is pretty accurate with his deep balls, and DJ Chark can go up and get it. He's a big wide receiver with speed. There's really not anyone on the team that I really see him competing with for targets. And, that's who I have at 18 on my wide receiver list. And who do you have on your list?
Just remember, Uncle Rico is on that injured COVID list right now as well.
No. COVID took a look at him and went the other way. That's a direct quote from Uncle Rico.
He's good now? Uncle Rico's okay?
He's off the list.
He's
ready to go.
Good for Uncle Rico. Now we'll see him in training camp with his short shorts and his headband again. God help us all.
Throwing at DJ Chark all day.
Number 18, I'm going with the receiver you had earlier, and that's A.J. Brown of the Tennessee Titans. He showcased a high level of production as a rookie last season, finishing first in yards, targets and yards, and routes, and second in yards reception in 2019, on his way to finishing as a ranked 21st among receivers in PPR scoring. His production came mostly in the back half of the season, though, after Ryan Tannehill took over.
Yep.
So the major concern right now going into the season and fantasy, the fantasy outlook for him is pretty much not him as a player and his skill set, but the low volume passing and a run heavy offense that Tennessee has with the new $50 million man in Derrick Henry. So we just have to wait to see how the ball is going to be distributed amongst them this coming season, especially in regards to numbers for A.J. Brown. So he's kind of one of those guys I wouldn't put as a wide receiver 2, but maybe either you bench him or you flex him. Either a bench or a flex.
I have him possibly being a wide receiver 1 this year.
Time is gonna tell, and it all depends on how they're gonna run that offense. Now that Tannehill is a solidified starter going into this coming season, and their offensive scheme, it's a matter of time. We'll see how that works out.
Well, let's put it like this: Tannehill got paid when he threw the ball to Brown, so keep throwing the ball to Brown. That's all I gotta say.
What can Brown do for you?
That's what I'm saying, bro. We could go all day. He can get the sponsorships and everything. Get me that chip, baby. Get me that chip. All right, and then for me over here, who I have at 19, this was a little bit of a tough one. This is like right now at the point where I'm looking at a lot of guys. I have a high affinity for Tyler Lockett, like Hammer was saying. He's someone that's actually near and dear to me because he's been on some of my biggest championship teams. He's been someone that I draft perennially late because he was always injury prone, and he's finally gotten to the point where he's over his injuries. He's a consistent scorer, but man, DK Metcalf is just like a different animal, bro. This dude is huge. This dude works out like a monster.
He's another one of those guys that I really and people give me a hard time all the time because, like, yeah, I have my favorite teams, but if I see a player that I like that just grabs my attention, he's another one of those guys. And I've never he's just one of those special talents you got to watch on Sundays.
Yeah, and he just physically, he's just a monster.
He's a beast.
But then when you look at it, the rapport that he's building with Russell Wilson is something that I really like. And I believe they were working out in this offseason, that they were throwing balls together, And I love him on those deep plays. I like him in tight. We saw that he was blowing up in the playoffs, and I think that trend continues. And I think that what we're going to see is and as we've seen with a lot of some of these guys that are ranked up, you can have two wide receivers that finish up pretty high, especially with the way these target shares go and the way these wide receivers get utilized. And I think Lockett and DK Metcalf are going to be pretty high. But this year, I think DK Metcalf takes that next step and starts to become Russell Wilson's number one. And he starts to put himself on that number one wide receiver map. And he starts to really build on what could be a really good career. I don't predict the full breakout this year. Or he'll start to make the full breakout, and by next year he's going to be, I think, a number one wide receiver going in the top half of drafts. Like you said, physically and everything he could do on the field, he's just a must watch. He's just that talented. But that's who I have at 18. That's another man crush guy that I have. Between Ridley and Metcalf, those are two guys that, man, if I could have two guys on this list, those are the two guys that I really, really want. But who do you have at 19?
19, I have a long-time vet, a very, 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 very long-time vet. That's T.Y. Hilton of the Indianapolis Colts. The surprising offseason retirement of Andrew Luck and injuries combined to ruin his season last year. Even after a fast start out of the gate, he missed 6 games and was held to a career low of 11.1 yards per catch and had 0 games with 100-plus yards. Now we enter Mr. I think we're on our 10th or 11th kid. Phillip Rivers is his new quarterback to restore the deep ball element to their offense. Jacoby Brissett and Brian Hoyer combined for 6.5 adjusted yards per attempt last season for the Colts, and that's just ridiculous. Rivers brings in a healthy 7.7 career average and ranks 6th in the NFL last season with 75 deep ball attempts. T.Y. Hilton may be towards the end of his career, and it's probably sad to say, but he's been in the league for quite some time. Dude is 30 years old. Last year, he finished in fantasy points, ranked 57th amongst receivers. He placed 34th with 5 touchdown receptions, 64th in receiving yards, and 501. This is going to be a bounce back year for him, especially with Phillip Rivers working with them now under new offense for him too. Things are going to look up for Indianapolis this coming season.
Yeah, I think that things could definitely look up for Indianapolis. I think that last year for Rivers may have been just a down year. But this goes back to the point that I was saying before. They don't have the full ability to like get out there and practice like they used to, and they're not going to have preseason games. And this is a new team. And will they start slow? That's the question that I have there. Will they know each other's chemistry enough to know when he makes the stop, when he makes the move, or when he has that matchup, or when he can trust him in double coverage? And that's kind of the only reason why I do have Hilton down, because Hilton is a solid, stable wide receiver throughout his career, and someone that could pay dividends and consistently been a wide receiver 1. Now we're talking about getting him near middle of third, fourth rounds. Sometimes 5th round. So it's a good player to take. But just for me, I'm a little bit worried about the new quarterback situation. The reason why I have some of these guys down is just because of that. And I think that the next player that I have has a little bit more experience with this quarterback. And that's why I do like him. And I like Drew Lock this year to kind of come out and start to show himself as a really good quarterback. And that's Cortland Sutton. If you look at Cortland Sutton last year, he finished in like the top, I want to say like 15 or 20 wide receivers last year. He really had some flashes when they put Drew Lock out there, and he's a dynamic playmaker that can score touchdowns. So I'm going with Sutton over here over a guy, like Lockett, and over a guy like JuJu and Hilton, guys that hit their hammer. Well, I have JuJu higher, but over Hilton, just because of that situation there where they kind of know each other a little bit better. But who do you have at 20?
Number 20, you just mentioned his name, JuJu, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked about him when you had him earlier or higher up in your rankings. Dude finished 63rd. He ranked 63rd in fantasy points last year. He ranked 51st in receiving yards. Receiving touchdowns with 3. He finished 61st in reception yards with 552. the combined loss to Roethlisberger in week 1 and the series of injuries, it just torpedoed his first season as the Steelers' number 1 receiver. Big Ben is back. Everybody's saying that he looks amazing right now going into the season. He's got us like, we look at JuJu having a solid chance of rebounding this season, but it's also a matter of his quarterback staying healthy as well and being able to be the Big Ben of old that everybody knew when he had the weapons like Antonio Brown as well. Antonio Brown and Lev Bell. So we just got to wait and see how this turns out, and hopefully JuJu definitely has a major turnaround this coming season.
Now, of your 20 receivers that we went over, right? Which of those guys to you is the guy that when you're going into drafts, you're targeting the most, or find yourself thinking like, if I had all these wide receivers that I have here, this is the guy that if I have a chance to get him in drafts, I'm going to make sure I get him?
Michael Thomas, hands down. That's why it's my number 1.
I'm talking about here between our 11 through 20.
Between our 11 through 20,
yeah,
I would say Cooper.
Yeah, you're really high on him.
Like I said, in regards to Dak trying to get a new contract as well, whether or not he's going to be a Cowboy forever or not, time will tell. But the way that Cooper came to Dallas last year and just turned it up for them and just put up numbers, and you do also have to take into consideration now they also have the rookie receiver and CeeDee Lamb as well. But if Cooper does half of he played half of the season and puts up numbers that he did last season and puts them up this year, it's a wrap. Dude's going to be a Pro Bowl selection. He's going to tear it up this year.
Yeah. I mean, last year, Cooper did finish as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He was the 9th wide receiver scoring wise last year. So he did put up numbers.
There you go.
I think the only reason why his I would say draft position has been depreciated is just exactly what Hammer said. They just signed CeeDee Lamb or drafted CeeDee Lamb, and you have Michael Gallup there. So there's 3 wide receivers, but we've seen it. He's already proven he's top 10. So if you get, like you said, even close to some of that production you had last year, you're looking at a player that's going to outproduce, a 14th or 13th slot, as a wide receiver over some of these guys. But it's the unknowns, and that's some of the reason why these guys move and fluctuate. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I think that as we get closer to the season, we'll get some more definitive answers on who's playing where and what kind of time's going on. Is there anything that you're looking forward to as we get closer to the season that you have your eye on? Any players, position battles, anything, health injuries?
I just want the season to be here already.
Yeah,
I'm that little kid right now that's just waiting, and I can't wait. I know it's going to be difficult without fans. I know a lot of things are different right now with this pandemic going on, but they brought back baseball's here, basketball's here, hockey's here. We're excited to have our sports back because you know what? It takes us away from the outside of all this BS that's going on right now with everybody. And just to have a couple hours on a Sunday or a Monday night is just going to take everybody's minds off things even more.
I agree, and I can't wait. I can't wait for Monday, Thursday, Sunday. You got 3 days a week when you can catch some football.
And now they're talking about potentially having games on Saturdays too. How could you say no to Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Bruh.
Oh my god, it'd be fantasy sports every day. Oh my god. I think that was the highlight of the episode, hearing something like that being possible. I want to thank everyone for coming by and watching another episode here. We're going to do our best to make sure that we get you covered for the new season as we get closer and closer. We're going to put more updates here. We'll do some updated rankings to make sure that we keep you up to date with the latest health information and changes. I'm super stoked with what we have coming up. We have some more rankings, some versus battles. We'll be able to go into some of these player debates that me and Hammer kind of get into as we're going through these rankings. Do you have anything for the fans as we close this out here, Hammer? Take us away. Wrap us up.
I just appreciate everybody that's been following, that's been watching. Just continue to share and put this out there for everybody. This was an idea that Taco had quite some time ago. He had me join the machine, and this has been great so far. I've had so much fun doing it. But the only way we keep doing it is if we keep getting you guys to come back and bring some more friends as well for the ride. Whatever help you guys need with any sport at this point, for fantasy, for any betting, whatever you guys want to do, reach out to us, follow us, like, follow, share, just put the word out there, and we appreciate every single bit of it.
Absolutely. And just to touch on that as we leave, Hammer, we are working on a Facebook group for you guys. So this way, if you have your questions about bets or anything like that, we'll put it in a central place. So this way you can ask people in the community and start getting the information out so we can see it. All right, Hammer, we're out of here. We thank you guys. And on a famous line, don't forget to wash your hands and wash your asses. Peace.